Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. You are listening to the Mara Mukonda Show on Islam Media. It is time for our marriage segment. Today we are discussing sacrifice versus compromise. So what is a sacrifice and what is a compromise? All right. Many young couples learn early on that compromises are going to be a big part of their marriages. A compromise means that you need to make concessions and often accept something that is less than desirable for the benefit of the relationship. Right. So joining me on the line right now is a relationship coach, Phumelele Sakina Dolamo, to discuss this in detail or just to expand on the topic. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Coach Sakina, thank you for joining me.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
Alhamdulillah. All right, so let's start with the difference between the two, sacrifice and compromise.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum to the listeners. I hope everyone is coping under the pandemic. Basically, compromise when it comes to relationships is cutting out something. I want to try to explain it from that side. It's just basically cutting out something. If you have something, 100% of it, maybe you just cut out 10%, you cut out 20% of it. While sacrifice on the other side is completely foregoing something in order to fulfill either your spouse's dreams or any other pursuits. So, for example, let me make an example. Let's say you are a career woman and every day at work you have to put in 14 hours. So you decide that, okay, in order for me to be present in my relationship, let me cut out 2 hours from work and then I put that towards the relationship. And then maybe your husband as well, maybe his job requires him 16 hours, for example. Then he says, no, okay, let me cut out 2 hours, 3 hours in order for us to be able to be together and be present in the relationship. A sacrifice is now when one of the spouses is always completely cutting themselves out. Maybe one spouse decided, no, in order for me to be present in the relationship, let me completely cut off my career. Or in order for me to be present in the relationship, let me completely cut off communication with my family. So now that's no longer a compromise, it's a complete sacrifice. And what we must also note here is that when you compromise, it must not feel like you are completely being derailed from what you want to fulfill, but it's just a cut off so that you can be present somewhere else. For example, if you used to spend 2 hours with your friends, then you cut off an hour so that you can be with your spouse. Now, a sacrifice is now completely not spending any time with your friends in order to be with your spouse. And what we must note is that it has to be fulfilling. You must feel like you are just doing a duty, and you have to be about your compromise. And if you decide to go for a sacrifice, you also have to find that fulfilling. Hello, are you still on?
Mm-hmm. How important is both a compromise and a sacrifice in the relationship? Because I know you said that it should feel fulfilling, but sometimes you do have those feelings whereby you feel like you are giving away so much of yourself and you're not getting anything in return.
A compromise or a sacrifice should not leave you completely depleted. you should be asking yourself, what is the alternative? Is the alternative fulfilling? Because most of the time you get, and as well, it should not be one-sided, because most of the time what brings about that feeling of depletion is that most of the time it's one-sided. It's one spouse always sacrificing their time, one spouse always sacrificing their money, or one spouse always just sacrificing something. So it shouldn't feel that way. And as a couple, you should sit together and discuss that no, I am not happy because I'm the one who is always sacrificing this, who is always compromising. Is it possible that you also try and cut certain to fulfill the vision and the goals of the marriage?
You know what? Some spouses are not very understanding. The fact that you mentioned the word I, they'll be like, yay, 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 yay. Now you're making this all about you. It's not about you, it's about us. Even though you say, but I'm the one making the sacrifices here. They'll be like, yeah, well, now you're being selfish. Now you're making this all about you. It's not about I, it's about we. We are a team. Like, okay, never mind. So, should a one sacrifice themselves, I mean, their happiness or their career for their spouses, for the sake of their spouse's happiness?
Please repeat the you're breaking up.
Should someone sacrifice their happiness or their career for their spouse's happiness? Like, if, for example, the spouse tells them that I don't think you should be working, rather stop working and stay at home. Would that be a good idea?
If you will find it fulfilling. So if it's something that turns you into someone who is miserable, it's something that I would not advise. You know, there are many women who have sacrificed their careers in order to stay home and raise their children. They have found that fulfilling, but not everyone is the same. It's not the same formula for everyone. If you're a type of person, if you are with your kids the whole day, they just drive you crazy, and you'd rather be in a career environment, maybe you're a scientist and you'd rather be finding the cure for corona, rather go for that. You know, go for something that will not turn you into a miserable person. Rather, if you can compromise, rather go for a compromise than a complete sacrifice.
But then again, how do you find a spouse who is understanding like that? Because there are many women who felt that they have made a lot of sacrifices in their lives for the sake of their spouses and their families, and they feel like they haven't fulfilled themselves, they haven't done much for themselves, and they don't know much. All they know is just being a wife and a mom. They don't know what it's like to be a career woman. They don't know what it's like to do anything else outside those roles of being a mom and a wife.
I think one of the things that we should understand firstly, you know, because we have done it before, is that all of these are just roles that you play. It's not who your essence, who you are. So at any given time, you can step away and review yourself, the sacrifices or compromises you have made, and decide that no, I no longer want to walk up to this distance. I want to change my route. I want to walk a different route. Yes, I'll still be playing the role of a mother. Yes, I'll still be playing the role of a wife, but I want to limit myself so that I can pursue something else that I want to do that will give me more of a fulfillment that I want. And it's not wrong to do that because you are not completely sacrificing your family. You're not deciding that you're no longer a mother, you're no longer a wife, but you just want to take another route that will help you actually be a better mother, be a better wife.
hmm So,
And as
what
they
should
say, wife, see life.
okay? So, what should you never sacrifice or compromise in a relationship?
Your sense of being yourself, your essence. I always say, don't lose your individuality. If you are Mariam, the artist, don't lose your creativity. Don't lose who you are when you define yourself, that this is what I am outside your role of being a wife, outside your role of being a mother. Don't lose yourself, because that's what actually most, if you question most people who are divorced, they will tell you that I lost myself. So try as much as possible not to lose yourself. Continue with the things that make you happy. If you need 30 minutes to spend with a friend who reminds you of who you are, do that. Go and take some 30 minutes and spend time with your friends. Spend time with your family. Don't cut relationships. As well, there's so many hadiths that tell us not to cut off family relationships, because those are the people that help us to remind ourselves of our essence.
And also don't compromise on being the person that you are. Like, if you are a person who's always telling jokes and being funny, and somebody tells you, hey, that's too much now, stop it. You're not a clown, so just stop it. It's part of who you are. So why should you stop being a funny person?
If you're a clown and it makes you happy, and it's who you are, we especially now that it's the pandemic, we need a lot of clowns because depression is knocking at the door, and in some houses it's went inside. So we need a lot of clowns right now.
Yes, definitely. We need clowns and all of those people who know how to cook a funny bowl nice and sweet, because, hey, like you said, it's real, it's real. But Alhamdulillah, we are now in level 2 lockdown, so perhaps we can have a lot uh, a lot less depression and anxiety, because of now we know what is, we don't really exactly know, but we have an idea of what is to come with the country being in level 2 lockdown. All right, so thank you once again for your time, coach, and we'll catch up soon enough and chat once again.
Okay, thank you very much for having me, Mariam and Salam Media, and please, everyone, stay safe. Even though it's level 2, it does not mean that we are free to move as we wish. Keep on sanitizing, washing your hands, social distancing, and every other precaution that we can take.
Yeah, actually, we are allowed to travel, you know. All right. All right. Have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, thank you. Same to you. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
That was Coach Phumelele Sakina Dolamo on the line, talking about compromise versus sacrifice. There are things that you can compromise, and there are things that you can sacrifice. Nice program. Muideen Hussein says that. Shukran for listening, Muideen, and also for your comments. Yeah, guys, so you should know whether you're going to make a sacrifice and whether you're going to compromise. But sit down and talk to your partner about the things that you are willing to compromise on and the things that you're willing to sacrifice on for the sake of the relationship. Um, you don't have to completely sacrifice who you are as a person, but you can compromise on a little things. Like you can give 10% of that instead of a full 100%, because at the end of the day, it is still part of who you are as a person. And we don't want them to be like, oh, you've changed. And we're like, but I've changed because of you. I've made the compromise and the sacrifices because of you. We don't want it to ever get to that stage. So rather just sit down, talk to your partner about the compromises and the sacrifices. All right, do stay with us. We will be right back after the break, but do make sure that you leave your comments and questions if you have them, and also send them to our WhatsApp line on 061 766 0355.